Can love truly conquer the divide between a peaceful life and a dangerous past? Share a story where you faced a similar choice. Alina's hands trembled as she arranged the steaming cups on the chipped wooden counter, the muted hum of the bustling cafe folding over her like a slow, suffocating tide. Outside, the city breathed a restless rhythm, rain pattering lightly against fogged windows, city lights blurring into rivers of amber and crimson under the wan sky. Her dark hair clung damply to her neck, and her piercing green eyes flickered with a tension she fought to mask. Sudden laughter sliced through the soft backdrop, sharp and cruel. A coworker's voice rose, harsh and deliberate, slicing the fragile bubble Alina had built around herself. "Guess the Mafia princess is back in town. Didn't expect to see you pulling espresso shots instead of pulling strings." Her breath caught, the words landing like stones against her chest. The room's warmth seemed to crystallize into a cold spotlight, centering on her with pointed fingers and narrowed eyes. Conversations halted mid-stride, glances sharpened to daggers reflecting judgment and disdain. Alina forced a smile, tight, brittle, but it faltered under the weight of the accusation hanging in the air. The lost necklace, a delicate gold chain she habitually fingered under her shirt, felt like a hidden brand, a symbol of a past she tried to bury but that now simmered just beneath the surface. "Don't mind her," another colleague whispered, but the sting lingered, threaded through the whispers and sidelong looks that clung like damp fog. Alina's world shrank, the cacophony of brewing machines and chatter dulled to a distant pulse. Each heartbeat thudded loudly, echoing her mounting shame and humiliation. Her fingers brushed the worn counter, a tactile anchor as her mind raced back to memories of Marco, ruthless, unyielding, the dangerous allure she left behind yet could never quite escape. The rain outside intensified, drumming a relentless rhythm against the glass, a cleansing storm refusing to wash away the turmoil building inside her. "Are you okay?" A tentative voice broke through, soft, concerned. Alina caught sight of a regular patron watching her with quiet empathy, the dim light casting his face in soft shadows of understanding. She nodded, voice barely above a whisper. "Just a long day." The city beyond sparkled with conflict, dazzling lights amidst shadows, hope bleeding through darkness. Alina exhaled slowly, the cool air mingling with the sharp scent of brewing coffee and rain-washed streets. Max, her loyal dog waiting patiently outside, brushed past her legs, a grounding presence in the chaos of the moment. The collar around his neck gleamed under the pale cafe lights, a token of steadfast loyalty in a world fractured by secrets. Alina's eyes drifted to the street, where the rain blurred the city lights into glowing orbs. Somewhere within that dance of shadows and amber, promise mingled with peril. Her hand unconsciously gripped the empty spot where the necklace used to rest, a fragile reminder of love lost, danger tethered, and a past clawing back into her present. As the storm raged softly outside, Alina stood poised at the edge of two worlds, her heart caught between the longing for freedom and the magnetic pull of a love that threatened to consume her. The cafe's dim amber glow flickered one last time as she swallowed hard, the moment suspended between retreat and reckoning. Outside, the rain had thickened, drumming a relentless tattoo against the cafe's grimy windows. Alina stood motionless by the counter, her dark hair tangled and damp, her piercing green eyes staring through the fogged glass at a city puzzled by its own shadows. The warm glow of streetlights pooled in puddles on the cracked pavement, refracting golden promises Alina was no longer certain she could grasp. Inside, the hum of conversation had turned into whispers laced with curiosity and judgment. Her coworkers' faces floated before her, some curious, some scornful echoes of the humiliation that now pulsed beneath her skin. The weight of exposure pressed heavy, a suffocating cloak woven from the threads of secrets long buried and newly unraveled. Alina's breath caught as the memory of that cruel revelation replayed in her mind, the careless cruelty of words spoken too loud, too public, focused painfully on the necklace she'd thought erased from her life. That delicate chain, lost in a past filled with volatile love and darker shadows, now a symbol resurrected from the depths of her vulnerability, Her fingers absent-mindedly brushed the empty space where the necklace once rested, a phantom touch amid the storm raging within. The loss was not merely of adornment but of identity, of a self desperately caught between the desire for freedom and the magnetic pull of a dangerous past. Anger flickered, restrained but fierce, like a flame struggling against a torrent. Memories of Marco flooded her senses, the intoxicating danger in his gaze, the brutal tenderness entwined in his presence. Shadows of past decisions echoed in every footstep of the cafe's wooden floor, every whispered glance. Leaning against the cool marble countertop, Elena closed her eyes briefly, the harsh neon lights above transforming into blurred halos. The sharp, metallic taste of regret mingled with the aroma of coffee and Reina bitter cocktail that seemed to seep into her very bones. Max's scratching at the door startled her back to the moment. The dog's collar chimed softly as he waited, patient and loyal, a living testament to devotion untainted by secrets. Elena knelt, her fingertips weaving through Max's thick fur, comfort found in the silent understanding of unwavering companionship. Her voice, barely a whisper, broke the silence. "How do I hold on to this when everything else is trying to pull me under?" Max's steady eyes met hers, unblinking, anchoring her in the turbulent sea of doubt. The city outside murmured promises and threats, a Lycia symphony of light and shadow that mirrored the turmoil gnawing at Elena's heart. Her gaze swung back to the street, where the rain traced erratic rivers down ornate glass facades and flooded alleyways. Within the chaos, the pulse of possibility throbbed, soft yet persistent, a call to courage amid the storm. A deep breath, slow and deliberate, filled her with fragile resolve. The lost necklace was more than forgotten jewelry, it was a fractured story, a key to the past thrust suddenly into the harsh glare of now. Elena's fingers curled into a fist at her side, the sharp contrast between cold city rain and the warm, steady loyalty at her feet a reminder of battles yet to come. Her eyes caught the flickering neon above the cafe, city lights bleeding with hope amidst encroaching darkness. And in that fleeting moment, as the rain softened and a distant siren wove through the night air, a spark kindled within her, uncertain, fragile, but unmistakably there. The past had found her. Now the question was whether she would let it consume her or become the spark that lit her path forward. The city sighed beneath the weight of secrets, the cafe's shadows flickered and stretched, and Elena stood poised at the crossroads, her story unfolding with every hesitant heartbeat. The night held its breath. The rain had not relented. It hammered relentlessly against the city's slick streets, swelling gutters into angry rivers that mirrored the turmoil within Elena's restless heart. Shadows folded over the urban maze like ink spilled hastily on fragile parchment, the neon glow of street lamps slicing through the mist in fractured lines of muted color distorted hope amid a landscape of concealed danger. Elena stood frozen in her modest apartment, bare walls steeped in darkness and the low pulse of distant sirens weaving a frozen rhythm. Her fingertips traced the cold, worn wood of the desk where fate awaited a small, folded envelope, its presence an unwelcome echo, a silent summons battling with the pounding storm outside. Her breath caught as her fingers trembled, the weight of every regret and memory swelling in the sharp scent of rain and lingering perfume, a scent inexorably linked to Marco. The lost necklace, once a token of love and a talisman of safety, now felt more like a chain, a reminder of the precarious boundary between hope and despair. Elena's eyes flickered, a mixture of fear and fierce resolve igniting beneath the heavy lids. The shadows behind her danced with memories, the stolen nights beneath whispered promises, the devastating betrayals etched deep into her soul, and the constant battle between the life she craved and the bonds she could not sever. She unfolded the brittle letter with hesitant fingers, each crackling crease resonating with history and hidden pain. The handwriting was unmistakable, elegant, cold, threaded with unspoken threats and a subtle promise that sent a shiver racing down her spine. "I am coming back," the words declared plainly, sharp as the rain's piercing rhythm, carrying a history thick with reckoning. Beneath the threat lay a complicated longing, a fractured confession of loves lost and battles yet to be faced. The letter slipped from her grasp as a kaleidoscope of emotions roared through her veins. Fear for the fragile peace she struggled to keep, anger at the chains that still bound her, and beneath it all, a trembling ember of unwilling hope refusing to die. Outside, the city's lights blurred beneath the curtain of rain, their warm glow unable to pierce the turbulent darkness gathering in her chest. Against the cold window, Alina's palms pressed flat, as if trying to hold back the past from flooding once more into the fragile present. Max's soft whine echoed across the room, the dog collar glinting faintly, an unbroken symbol of loyalty and constancy in a world lurching between shadows and light. Alina's gaze fell to the faithful creature, her resolve hardening like the storm's fierce wind clawing at the window panes. Her lips parted, breath caught between a whisper and a vow. "I won't let it define me, what we had, what could be lost." The city exhaled under the rain, the discordant symphony of distant horns, hurried footsteps, and the ceaseless cascade of water forging a backdrop for a woman standing at the edge of two worlds. The lost necklace glittered softly on her dresser, a fragile beacon suspended between love's peril and the promise of freedom. A sliver of moonlight broke through the bruised clouds, washing the room in silver and shadow. Alina's eyes reflected that fragile light, resilient, uncertain, but undeniably alive. And in that flickering glow, a seed of defiance took root. The returning storm might threaten to engulf her, but beneath its fury, her heart began to pulse with the quiet strength of a woman who would face down darkness for the chance of a future reclaimed. The rain softened as if holding its breath, and Alina's silhouette stood resolutely, a beacon caught in the shifting tides of past and possibility. The city lay swathed in a thick, unyielding fog, the kind that clings to every surface and muffles sound, draping Alina's world in a haze of uncertainty. She moved carefully through rain-slicked streets, each footstep a heavy echo against the cold pavement, mirrored by flickering pools of city lights that fought to pierce the gloom. Her dark hair, tangled and damp, glistened under sporadic neon glows, and her piercing green eyes burned with a fierce determination rippling beneath a veneer of quiet despair. Alina's breath fogged in the chill air as memories of Marco, his dangerous smile, the tight grip of his power, the love that both bound and threatened to unravel her, stormed through her thoughts. But with every bitter recollection came the unrelenting chorus of shame, the sting of public humiliation at the cafe still raw on her skin like cold rain. Tonight, the city's underbelly whispered treacherous promises, and the scent of asphalt mixed with distant smoke filled the air. Alina's fingers clenched, the phantom weight of the lost necklace heavy on her heart, a symbol of the past she desperately tried to forget yet still pulled inexorably toward her. Turning a corner, her silhouette merged with the shadows of towering buildings, the low murmur of hidden dangers humming beneath the urban pulse. She paused outside an inconspicuous doorway, hesitating, the ambivalence flickering in her eyes betraying a conflict between fear and resolve. Inside, the muffled warmth and buzzing voices of old connections awaited a world she'd once tried to leave behind. Her steps faltered, then steadied, reverberating with cautious purpose. Each breath was a battlefield, every heartbeat a war drum announcing the fragile reawakening of courage. A voice broke the stillness, a sharp, familiar one that sliced through the acidic haze of doubt. "You shouldn't be here, Elena." The words were both a warning and a challenge, steeped in the complex dance of past alliances and betrayals. Her gaze met that of an old acquaintance, eyes narrowing beneath heavy lids, secrecy and defiance tangled in their depths. Alina's jaw tightened, the faintest edge of a smirk curving her lips as she replied, "I'm not running anymore." Rain began anew, a steady drum that echoed the tension crackling between whispered secrets and unspoken fears. The city seemed to hold its breath alongside her, caught between dusk and dawn, danger and deliverance. Max's soft whine and the faint jingling of his collar provided a grounding rhythm, a pulse of unwavering loyalty amidst the swirling chaos. His warm weight against her legs was a tether to resilience, a reminder that she was not alone in this shadowed fight. The narrow alleyways and flickering streetlights formed a lattice of shadow and light, mirroring the conflicting choices knotting within Alina's heart. The path forward was jagged, fraught with peril and promise. Each step she took was laden with hesitant strength, a dance between past and future, love and duty. Her hand brushed the empty space beneath her blouse where the necklace once rested, the loss sharp yet awakening an ember of resolve. A sudden sharp chill whipped through the streets as if the city itself breathed its portent, the night deepening, swallowing whispers and dreams alike. And then, the distant sound of a door slamming echoed raw, unyielding, fracturing the fragile silence. Elena paused, every sense alight as the unspoken question hung thick in the misted air. Was the past closing in, or was the fight for freedom just beginning? The night draped its sheeting veil over the city like a shroud, the rain intensifying, relentless, cold, and merciless. Alina's steps echoed hollowly against the slick pavement, the puddles rippling violently beneath her hurried strides. Every breath she drew was sharp, punctuated by the pounding in her chest and the whisper of a past she desperately sought to escape yet was fast pulling her back into its dark embrace. The letter's words, bare, chilling, irrevocable, burned behind her eyelids, igniting a storm of dread and determination. Marco's return was no mere whisper. It was an unrelenting drumbeat calling her back to a life she had fought to flee. She arrived at a dimly lit apartment building tucked behind narrow alleys, its flickering street lamp sputtering a sickly glow over graffiti-scarred walls. As she hesitated by the threshold, a familiar shadow detached itself from the darkness, someone she had once trusted, whose eyes now glimmered with cold calculation. "You really thought it would be that easy?" The whispered accusation was thick with finality. "You can't outrun the past, Elena." Her pulse quickened, a rush of anger and betrayal flashing through her like lightning. This was the turning point, the moment when choices fractured into paths that led either back into danger or toward fragile sanctuaries. Inside, Alina's world constricted as betrayal moved like a serpent through whispered conversations and secret meetings. Hidden cameras, intercepted message, a web spun tightly around her vulnerability. The walls that once promised safety now became cold witnesses to espionage and manipulation. Her phone vibrated, a cryptic text from an unknown number. "Trust is a luxury you can no longer afford." The words scalded, yet beneath the burning pain stirred the embers of resolve. Alina's fingers brushed the soft fabric of a worn glove's pocket where the empty space of a once-cherished necklace lingered, a symbol of loss and unhealed wounds but also a talisman of resilience. Hours slipped through the fingers of dawn as she traced the city's edges, seeking old connections, whispering names no one spoke aloud, threading together fragments of a puzzle where every piece seemed soaked in danger. Rain hammering the rooftops played a slow symphony of cleansing and chaos as Alina's heart clenched, a battlefield of fear and courage clashing within her. The urban scape stretched blurred and infinite, a mosaic of shadows and flickering hope. A brief message lit her screen: "Meet me where the city forgets the sky." "There's more to know." She hesitated, the weight of unknown threats pressing cold against her spine. But something deeper pulled her forward, the delicate thread of hope woven through the storm. In the space between the rain and streetlight, Alina's silhouette faltered, then steadied. Her breath was a silent vow against the howling wind, not to surrender, not yet. The city's pulse quickened, the distant rumble of sirens weaving with the soft click of a closing door. The fracture lines of trust and betrayal stretched wide, yet beneath the turmoil, the fragile dawn of a battle for truth and freedom shimmered unmistakably. Her story was no longer just a whisper lost in the storm. It was a charge, fierce and unyielding, defined by every choice she was yet to make. And as mist swallowed the streets, Elena vanished into the neon-lit labyrinth, poised between shadow and light, caught in the raw possibility of what was to come. The night hung low over the city like a velvet shroud, the rain pitiless and unrelenting as it slashed against the pavement and traced chaotic patterns down gleaming windows. Elena stood beneath the flickering streetlight, its halo a cold and wavering promise amid the darkness. Her breath caught in the sharp chill, spiraling out in quick, misted bursts as her mind wrestled with the storm both outside and within. The letter, the blood-stained, crumpled thing left under her door, felt like a brand burning in her pocket. The ink, smeared and smeared again by that relentless rain, was a sinister echo of secrets she'd hoped were dead. The words scratched at her soul, a summons intertwined with warning, a promise of reckoning tangled with pain. Marco's name, a cruel incantation she had long buried beneath layers of denial, now surged back with brutal clarity. Her heart faltered, then hardened, the conflicting tumult of love, fear, and betrayal surging like a tidal wave. This was no longer a whispered threat but a tangible force creeping closer. As she moved, the city around her pulsed with life and menace. Neon signs caught in pools of rain shimmered like specters. It was a landscape built on danger and allure, a world she understood too well, yet yearned desperately to escape. The lost necklace, a delicate Ouroboros of regret and unresolved past, felt heavier now with every heartbeat, a chain invisible but binding tight. Turning a corner, Alina's silhouette shifted beneath the amber glow of a vintage street lamp. The echo of footsteps slipped behind her, slow, deliberate. She spun, heart lurching, to find Marco standing there, framed by the darkened doorway of a forgotten building. His eyes a tempest of shadow and fire pierced through her soul. "You thought you could walk away?" His voice was a low rumble, a dangerous caress that stirred every memory she'd tried to silence. Her voice was steady, but laden with stormy resolve. "I am not yours to claim." Their exchange was a delicate dance of power and vulnerability, two broken souls tangled in earth and fire, the city's shadows stretching and ebbing around them. The world held its breath, caught in the fierce tension, as rain began to fall anew, cleansing, tormenting, relentless. Alina's gaze drifted to a glint near his feet, the lost necklace, gleaming wet and defiant on the ground. She reached out, fingertips brushing the cold metal, the symbol of love and loss, freedom and captivity. It sang a mournful song of what was lost and what could never be reclaimed. A tear slid free, tracing a salted line down her cheek as the city faded into a blur of light and shadow. The necklace in her hand was no longer just jewelry but a key, a burden, a fragment of a destiny interwoven with Marco's own and with secrets yet to unravel. Marco's voice was a hushed promise and a warning intertwined. "You can't outrun what's in your blood, Elena." She looked up, resolve kindling, a Newa fragile, fierce flame amid the tempest. "Maybe not. But I decide who I become." The rain intensified, washing the streets, mixing past tears with the promise of renewal. The city's pulse quickened, echoing the rising storm, as Elena stepped into the night's embrace, adrift and unbroken, poised on the cusp of truth and upheaval. The camera lingered on her clenched hand around the necklace, the water droplets like crystals of a fractured past refracting the light. The music swelled, a haunting melody threading through shadows and rain. And as dawn began to whisper at the edges of the night, Alina's silhouette faded into the cityscape, a lone figure caught between love and duty, fear and hope, past and an unknown, uncertain future. Elena stood before the cracked mirror of her dimly lit apartment, the reflection fractured much like the remnants of her life. Outside, a cold rain fell steadily, blurring the city lights into streaks of gold and crimson that resembled tears sliding down the windowpane. The relentless rhythm of the rain was a cruel heartbeat echoing the chaos within and the suffocating weight of a world unraveling faster than she could grasp. Her fingers absently reached for the spot where the delicate necklace once rested, a tangible void against her collarbone, a void stretched to infinity. The lost necklace had been her talisman of hope, a symbol of escape and redemption. Now, it was a bitter reminder of regret and an unresolved past clawing back to claim her. Memories surged without mercy. Marco's stature in shadowed rooms, his ruthless charm, the intoxicating danger of his touch, and the cruel reality of love twisted by power and betrayal. Alina's breath hitched, her resolve fracturing under the weight of anguish and fear. The room around her felt smaller, the amber glow of a single lamp casting long, retreating shadows that swallowed the warmth in favor of cold isolation. Her heart thundered in the silent abyss, every pulse a reminder of what was slipping beyond her control. She sank onto a worn velvet chair, the fabric grasping at her fingers as if anchoring her to a fading thread of sanity. In the muted glow, her eyes shimmered with unshed tears bracing against a future brimming with uncertainty and formidable losses. A sudden sound broke the heavy silence, a soft knock at the door. Alina's gaze snapped upward, fear and hope momentarily wrestling beneath her composed exterior. But the knock was empty, echoing into the hollow spaces within. The city beyond roared beneath the storm, the relentless clash of thunder mirroring the dissonance ripping her apart. The rain traced paths down stained glass panes, an unyielding river of cleansing misery. In the depths of solitude, Elena whispered to the darkness, "How do I hold on to myself when everything I love slips through my fingers?" No answer came but the endless, indifferent cascade of rain. The necklace's lost glimmer, a symbol of love and freedom, felt farther than the distant city lights, which glowed faintly against the encroaching night. Her figure, draped in shadows and sorrow, became one with the muted storm outside, a fragile soul drowning in the tide of despair. And yet, beneath the crushing weight, the pulse of a fractured fight remained, flickering in the storm's eye. The camera held on Alina's trembling hand, stretched out toward the window's cold glass, fingers splayed as though reaching for an unreachable dawn. The city breathed heavily around her, a cold, vast expanse alive with secrets and lost promises. And in that silence, Alina's world tilted irreversibly, spiraling fast toward a darkness that threatened to consume all she held dear. The city lay draped in a crushing silence, a blanket of darkness thick enough to smother hope. Elena walked alone through rain-slicked streets, the night's cold breath clawing at her skin, seeping deep beneath the fabric of her coat. Each step echoed against the empty buildings, the sound hollow and mournful, a bleak counterpoint to the tempest raging inside her. Her green eyes, once alight with fierce determination, now glimmered with raw exhaustion, reflecting shards of neon light refracted through the relentless downpour. The urban landscape blurred into a monochrome palette of wet pavement and flickering streetlights, but Elena moved as if suspended between worlds, the fragile boundary between the life she yearned for and the past that pursued her without mercy. The weight of betrayal and loss crushed her, bending every breath into a struggle. She curled her hands into fists, the ache of regret sharp against her ribs, but the pain was a distant echo beneath the deeper, suffocating sense of emptiness. The lost necklace, its absence a raw wound against her chest, felt like the severed link between who she was and who she might become. Passing beneath a flickering street lamp, her shadow fractured and splintered on the wet concrete, a fractured mirror of her splintered soul. The rain drummed a relentless rhythm on the empty streets, a ceaseless symphony of cleansing and despair. Alina's breath fogged in the cold air, fragile and fleeting, a whispered question escaping lips pressed tight with torment. Who am I without the love I lost? Around her, the city was indifferent to her anguish. The muted hum of distant traffic, the faint wail of sirens far away, all faded into an oppressive silence that swallowed sound like a void. The footsteps behind her were ghosts' memories stalking, haunting, yet no voice answered her desperate silence. She stopped beneath an overpass, the hollow echoes of dripping water singing a dirge. Her eyes drifted to the jagged shards of broken glass glinting like fractured stars on the pavement, each one a sharp reflection of dreams shattered and hopes abandoned. Elena bent down, fingers brushing the shards, a symbolic gesture of touching the raw edges of her fractured identity. The cold bit into her skin, mirroring the chill that had settled in her heart, unyielding and unforgiving. Is there a way back? She whispered to the void, voice mournful and cracked. The rain intensified, drumming a relentless cadence on the desolate cityscape, a cleansing storm that promised no salvation, only reckoning. Around her, the world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the final thread of hope to fray and snap. Max's soft whine broke the stillness, an echo of loyalty amid the desolation. Elena looked down to see him, eyes filled with steadfast devotion despite their shared desolation. The dog collar, damp against his thick fur, glistened faintly, a tender emblem of unshaken faith in a crumbling world. Yet, even Max's presence could barely anchor Elena as she folded inward, her silhouette enveloped by the city's shadows, a fragile soul teetering on the edge of disappearance. The camera lingered on Elena's face, a haunting canvas of despair, flickering with fleeting glimmers of fading light. The distant neon signs buzzed and pulsed relentlessly, casting harsh, fractured colors that mirrored the tempest within. Her breath slowed, her body slackened, and in the vast, empty embrace of the night, Elena surrendered, her world unraveling, hope retreating into the darkness. And as the rain whispered secrets to the streets, silence claimed her entirely, a silence profound, absolute, and suffocating. The city breathed a cold sigh beneath the spitting drizzle, the rain muting the glow of street lamps into tentative smudges against the darkened sky. Elena wandered without direction, the weight of loss and betrayal pressing on her with an almost physical force. Her footsteps echoed hollowly on wet pavement, a rhythm broken only by the distant wail of a siren piercing the night's fragile hold. Her fingers absent-mindedly grazed the empty space at her neck, the aching absence where her lost necklace had once rested, a symbol now of regret and unresolved pasts. The cold chill seeped beneath her skin, mingling with the storm of emotions that threatened to drown her: fear, sorrow, anger, and an unbearable loneliness that clung tightly despite her bravest efforts. The city seemed vast and indifferent, its alleyways swallowed in shadow, the once bustling streets now silent confessions of the secrets they kept. Rain gathered in pools, mirroring her turmoil, each drop a quiet echo of the tears she refused to shed. She paused beneath a rickety awning, watching droplets race in silent competition along the glass. In that mundane moment, a faint shimmer caught her eye, a fleeting reflection of a flickering neon sign in the window, casting a warm halo amidst the gloom. It was fragile, elusive, but unmistakably aglow. Elena's gaze lifted, capturing the ghost of light, a single thread of hope woven through the tapestry of despair. The city lights, despite the blackout of her soul, whispered of hidden paths, of choices yet unmade. Her breath hitched, a hesitant murmur breaking the heavy silence. Maybe there's still a way. Max, faithful as ever, nudged her hand gently, the soft jingle of his collar a subtle but profound affirmation, the unwavering presence of loyalty in a fractured world. In that contact, a spark ignited, fragile but resolute. Her eyes filled with tears, not solely of grief this time, but tinged with the first glimmer of courage, a seedling of strength pushing through the cracked earth of broken dreams. She folded the soaked sleeve of her jacket over her hand and clenched it, the texture of fabric grounding her amid the storm. The lost necklace, the haunting past, the merciless Reynal threads woven into the fabric of her being, yet no longer chains but weaving together the fragile possibility of redemption. As the rain softened to a gentle whisper and the dawn's first light bled pale gold along the horizon, Elena took a tentative step forward, the city awakening around her as if in silent encouragement. The camera lingered on her silhouette against the awakening scion emblem of resilience poised at the precipice of transformation. And in that fragile glow, the journey from despair toward hope found its first, trembling breath. The chamber was thick with silence, suffused with the muted glow of dawn seeping through partially drawn curtains. Elena stood at the edge of her modest balcony, the city sprawling beneath her like a living mosaic of shadows and lights. The rain had eased to a delicate drizzle, droplets softly tapping against the glass and the cold stone beneath her bare feet. Her breath came in shallow, contemplative puffs, turning to mist in the cool air. In her hand, she held the small, worn fragment of the necklace she had clung to, a fragile tether to her pastit's tarnished surface catching the first golden rays of the day. The weight of the last tumultuous days pressed against her: betrayal, loss, the realization that her life had been a chessboard for forces far beyond her understanding. Yet, Amidst the chaos, a single thought flickered the faint ember of hope, fragile but alive. The city was awakening. Somewhere, the distant hum of traffic mingled with the early calls of birds, their songs a gentle counterpoint to the storm of her thoughts. Alina's gaze drifted over the skyline, seeking a sign, a whisper of dawn that might herald renewal. The sharp lines of her past, the shadows that haunted her, began to soften as she allowed herself a moment of stillness. A subtle flicker of warmth appeared within her, faint but persistent. Her fingertips traced the rough edges of the necklace, feeling the cool metal tickle her skin, a stark contrast to the nearly overwhelming darkness of her thoughts. That small, worn remnant was no longer just a symbol of regret but a fragile seed of rebirth. A gust of wind stirred, whispers of renewal, as she closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the quiet power of that moment. The storm inside was far from over, yet something new was stirring, an unspoken promise that even in darkness, light can find a crack, a fissure, where hope can seep through. Behind her, the city stretched out, a silhouette of endless possibilities waiting patiently beyond her fears. Alina took a slow, deliberate breath, allowing the cool air to fill her lungs, anchoring her in the present. Her shoulders, once tense and filled with doubt, eased slightly, the light touching her face like a gentle reassurance. Tiny drops of rain splashed rhythmically, each a note in the quiet symphony of beginnings and endings. As she turned to face the street once more, a faint smile broke through her defenses, a promise, fragile yet evident. The distant horizon glowed with the promise of renewal, a gentle reminder that even the most battered soul can find its dawn, if only for a moment. Alina's gaze held that glimmer, the knowledge that far from being finished, this was merely a new chapter waiting to be written. Her hand tightened around the necklace's fragment, her eyes reflecting a flicker of resolve. And as the morning unfolded into brighter hues, she stepped away from the balcony, the first stirrings of awakening hope guiding her forward, quiet but unwavering, ready to embrace the journey that was yet to come. The first light of dawn filtered through the narrow slit of Alina's window, casting a faint golden hue over the quiet room, a stark contrast to the chaos of her past 3 days. Outside, the city was awakening, but inside, she stood frozen at the center of her newfound resolve, heart pounding with cautious hope. Her fingers traced the edge of the blood-stained letter she'd hidden in her palm, a relic of a nightmare she refused to let define her. In the dim glow, Alina's eyes flickered with clarity, ignited by the flicker of an ember that refused to be smothered. The despair that had once consumed every betrayal, every loss had sown the seeds of strength in the earth of her soul. Today, she was going to forge her own path, guided by the lessons etched into her scars. She moved deliberately, every step a defiance against the darkness that had threatened to swallow her whole. Her heels clicked softly against the wooden floor, echoing the rhythm of her renewed purpose. She reached for her coat, the fabric heavy with memories but lighter with hope, and slipped it on, feeling the weight settle comfortably over her shoulders. As she stood by the window, her gaze settled on the city skyline, skyscrapers piercing the morning mist, lights flickering like distant stars. The luminous city had long symbolized both her prison and her sanctuary. Today, it shimmered with the promise of reinvention, held together by strands of resilience. In her hand, she clenched the necklace, the fragment she had managed to save amid chaos, a fragile talisman of suffering and resurgence. She was no longer ruled by the shadows of her past. She was slowly reclaiming her voice, her destiny. A slow, deliberate breath steadied her racing mind. "This is the beginning," she whispered, a quiet vow etched into the dawn. Her lips curved into an almost imperceptible smile, a fragile gesture of self-acceptance. The knowledge that the storm inside her was beginning to abate, replaced by the slow warmth of hope, sparked an inner light. In that suspended moment, Alina's silhouette merged with the rising sun, an emblem of renewal emerging from the night's deep despair. The city's heartbeat pulsed beneath her, alive and waiting. She stepped away from the window, each movement deliberately an act of courage that heralded her readiness to face whatever was to come. The camera lingered on her face, eyes shimmering with the dawn of possibility before drifting upward. The clouds parted slightly, revealing a shaft of light that bathed the city in a gentle glow, a silent promise that even the darkest night could surrender to the promise of a new day. The dawn breached the horizon, casting a blinding shaft of golden light that sliced through the lingering shadows of the night. Elena stood atop the rooftop, overlooking the city's restless sprawl, her silhouette a testament to the quiet strength she had gathered. The sky, aflame with hues of amber and rose, symbolized a rupture, an ending, and a beginning woven into the same moment. Clutched tightly in her hand was the necklace, the same worn fragment that had once held her secrets, guilt, and longing. Its cool surface now felt like a talisman of renewal, a reminder that within every shadow lurked the promise of dawn. Her piercing green eyes reflected the fiery hues of the awakening sky, a mirror to her transformation. Behind her, the city was waking, lights flickered on, casting long shadows that danced in the early light, luminous and starkly real. Yet, Elena felt beyond the glow of the lights an unshakable calm radiated from her core. The storm of betrayal, fears, and impossible love that had once threatened to drown her had receded, replaced by a resilient resolve. Her breath was slow, steady, the calm before the final act that would mark her liberation. Every scar, every tear, every moment of despair had carved her into Thesan engine of quiet rebellion. For the first time, she was no longer driven by the ghosts of her past but propelled by the promise of her future. Her lips curled into a soft, knowing smile, part hope, part defiance. The city spread out before her like an open book, the pages still blank, awaiting the story she would write anew. The necklace, glinting in the light, was no longer a chain of regret but a symbol of her unbroken spirit. With deliberate steps, she turned away from the edge, the wind catching her hair as she moved into the city's awakening hustle. The streets, alive with possibility, beckoned her forward, an uncharted path illuminated by the dawn's golden promise. As she descended from her perch, her figure relaxed into a posture of unwavering purpose. Her gaze lingered on the horizon, the vast expanse of the day filled with endless opportunities and the hope she refused to relinquish. In that moment of poised silence, Elena was reborn, an embodiment of resilience and hope, standing at the threshold of her final confrontation, calm, radiant, unstoppable. The journey had only begun, but her spirit had already triumphed. The early evening sun cast a soft, amber glow over the city, its warm rays filtering through the windows of Elena's modest apartment. Inside, she stood facing a wide mirror, her reflection unmasked but luminous with quiet resolve. Her dark hair cascaded softly over her shoulders, and her piercing green eyes held a calm depth that had long been missing. The faint outline of the necklace she'd held onto, a fragile link to the past, lay resting on her collarbone, invisible but felt. The storm that once threatened to drown her had receded, leaving behind a tranquil, almost sacred silence. Elena's fingertips brushed the soft fabric of her dress, a simple yet elegant reminder that her strength lay in her choices, in her resilience against the shadows that had threatened to consume her. She moved slowly, deliberately, toward the window, where the city stretched out like a living tapestry, glimmering buildings and winding streets alive with stories yet to be written. The air was cool, a gentle caress that invigorated her, whispering promises of new beginnings. Her gaze lingered on the horizon, the skyline painted with hues of lavender and golden, eternal symbol of hope and renewal. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Elena let the feelings of guilt and fear dissolve into acceptance. The chapter of betrayal, the love that had bound her to danger, was finally closing. Her journey through darkness had carved her into someone new, someone who understood that true love and strength weren't about escape but about courage and reconciliation. Her hand reached for the glass, her reflection shimmering softly in its surface, mirroring the dawn of a future she decided to embrace without hesitation. The necklace, now gently resting in her palm, caught the sunlight, its subtle shimmer glowing like a beacon, reminding her that even in the depths of despair, hope could quietly ignite. With a resolve born from pain and perseverance, Elena placed the necklace around her neck, feeling the cool metal settle against her skin. It was no longer a symbol of regret but a testament to her resiliency, a silent vow to herself and her future. Turning away from the window, she walked toward the door, her steps light and confident. The city awaited outside, vibrant and full of promise. Every breath she took carried the weight of her journey, the lessons learned and the strength gained. As she stepped into the fading light of the evening, her silhouette was bathed in a gentle glow. A moment of peace washed over her, seamless and profound, a quiet acceptance that she was finally free to shape her destiny. The camera lingered on her profile as she opened the door, the city's hum rising softly in harmony with her heart, a testament to hope reborn, forged in fire and resilience, now ready to write her next chapter in the unfolding dawn. The city shimmered in a gentle twilight, the horizon ablaze with hues of blood orange and soft lavender. Elena paused at the edge of a quiet bridge overlooking the river, clutching the necklace, the small fragment once tangled with regret now transformed into a symbol of liberation. Her breath was slow and deliberate, a rhythmic exhalation that carried away the remnants of her tumultuous past. Behind her, the world whispered in hushed tones, the lapping water, the distant murmur of life, the fading hum of the city. Yet within her, a profound silence had settled, a space for renewal and peace. Her eyes, piercing and resolute, reflected the waning light as she finally allowed herself to release the heavy burden she'd borne for so long. The necklace, gleaming faintly in the dusk, was no longer a chain of regret but a beacon of resilience. It caught the last flickers of sunlight, a fragile flicker of hope, fragile but unbreakable. Elena's fingertips brushed its surface with reverence, a silent acknowledgement of her journey, painful, transformative, and ultimately freeing. A soft breeze stirred her dark hair, lifting it gently as if endorsing her rebirth. Her posture relaxed, shoulders eased from the weight of betrayal and fear. A subtle, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips, the kind born of acceptance, of understanding that what had been lost was merely making space for what was to come. She looked out over the river, its surface shimmering with the reflected glow of the setting sun, the water flowing forward, an eternal symbol of moving beyond the past. The city's lights twinkled distant and indifferent, yet they too mirrored a quiet hope, the promise that even in darkness, new dawns could arise. Elena drew a final, deep breath, feeling the cool air fill her lungs, fresh, cleansing, alive. She heartened herself with the knowledge that her pain, her sacrifice, and her years of struggle had sculpted her into someone, a survivor, a woman unshackled from her past, yet forever changed. Slowly, she turned from the edge of the water, her silhouette illuminated by the dying daylight, a figure both tender and resolute. Every step she took was deliberate, a dance of courage and grace amid the hush of twilight's embrace. The camera lingered on her face, capturing the serene light of peace settling deep within her, an enduring testament to resilience. Her hand gently brushed the necklace at her neck, a final gesture of silent gratitude before she set forth into the night, ready to forge a future from the ashes of yesterday's sorrows. Elena stood atop the weathered bridge, the horizon before her ablaze with a setting sun that drenched the sky in hues of amber and deep crimson. Her fingertips still gently held the necklace, a faint warmth contrasting against the cool dusk air, a symbol of her liberation. The bustling city stretched out behind her, its endless lights flickering softly like distant stars, but her gaze was fixed beyond, on the quiet vastness of the water below. A gentle, almost imperceptible smile softened her face, reflecting a peace she had long denied herself. The rain had ceased, leaving the air thick with the scent of earth and lingering storm, a reminder that cleansing sometimes comes softly after the storm's fury. Her shadow stretched long against the surface of the water, a silhouette that embodied resilience and release. The weight of her past, betrayal, fear drifted like mist, dissolving into the twilight. This was her moment of quiet surrender, yet also her triumphant rebirth. She slowly lowered her hand, the necklace still cradled within her palm, a fragile yet unbreakable tether to her journey. The cool metal pressed against her trembling skin, anchoring her in the present while whispering of future possibilities. Her pulse beat a steady, unhurried drum and echo of her rediscovered strength. Around her, the cityscape shimmered in the dusk's soft glow, a mosaic of hope carved into shadows. The distant hum of life beneath the heavens faded into a gentle symphony, neither loud nor intrusive, just the quiet hymn of a soul finally at peace. Alina's eyes, luminous and clear, drifted across the water's surface patterns formed by ripples like the delicate threads of her own unfolding story. The chaotic storm had passed, leaving behind a serene canvas empty yet pregnant with promise. She turned slightly, her silhouette framed by the glowing horizon, releasing all the tension and pain she'd carried within. In that stillness, a moment stretched, infinite and unwavering, the perfect silence of transformation. Her heart, once tumultuous with longing and dread, now beat calmly, attuned to the natural rhythm of renewal. Every scar, every tear, was now a silent echo in the vastness of her being, no longer wounds but badges of her resilience. As the last sunlight dipped beyond the water, she took one final, slow step back from the edge. The wind brushed her hair gently, a whisper of blessing or goodbye, it mattered not. The necklace, shimmering faintly in her hand, reflected the dying light and the promise of new beginnings. Alina turned away from the bridge, her figure a graceful silhouette against the resplendent sky. Her presence, calm and unshaken, embodied a quiet victory, the culmination of love, pain, and courage intertwined. With each step she took, she carved into the night a story of hope, of letting go, and of embracing the endless horizon beyond shadows. And in the silent eternity of that moment, the water below, the sunset's fading glow, and her fading figure became a living symbol of peace, endings transformed into beginnings, shadows into dawn. What would you do if a lost item brought you back to a dangerous love? Share your thoughts.